They gave me the floor at 10 past the second hour, and what they wanted from me was 400 words. That was the minimum. The Soleth Concordance had very specific ideas about what a formal apology sounded like. Its architecture, its duration, the specific tonal registers a petitioning body was expected to move through. Contrition first, then acknowledgement of harm, then a statement of corrective intent. The whole structure was codified in Procedural Statute 41, paragraph 9, and the presiding arbiter had read it aloud before calling my name, in case I had forgotten, in case I had come here unprepared, in case I needed reminding of what a body that wanted to remain in good standing with the Concordance was expected to say. I had been coming to these sessions for 19 years. My name is Ren Devar. I have held Earth's filing seat at the Soleth Concordance since the Marin Accords extended observer status to outer system missions, and in that time, I have attended 2,847 sessions, filed on behalf of my government in 49 contested proceedings, and spoken, officially, on the floor, for the permanent record, a combined total of 0 words. Not because I had nothing to say, because I was counting. The charge against us was this: Earth's diplomatic presence at the Concordance had been negligent, non-participatory, and contemptuous of the body's deliberative processes. We had been allocated speaking time at every regular session, and had declined it, every time, without explanation. We had submitted written filings in lieu of floor testimony, always within deadline, always technically compliant, always, and this word appeared repeatedly in the arbiter's preliminary findings, silent. The Concordance had interpreted our silence as indifference. Indifference had become a finding of bad faith. Bad faith had become the predicate for a formal censure proceeding, and the censure proceeding required, under Statute 41, a verbal response from the offending party of no fewer than 400 words. The arbiter invited me to begin. I stood. I looked at the bench, all 31 occupied seats, the Concordance's full deliberative complement, ranged in their tiered arc above the floor, like something that had been carved rather than assembled. Elder Sorath at the center, flanked by the paired arbiters of the Solvari block on his left, and the Vethrani compact on his right. 31 faces in ceremonial gray, each one arranged in the particular expression of patient authority that bodies like this spend centuries perfecting. The look that says, "We have seen petitioners fail before, and we will see them fail again, and the process will continue, regardless of what you bring to this floor." I had watched those faces for 19 years. I knew which ones drank before sessions. I knew which ones slept. I knew which 3 had voted, privately, to extend Earth's observer status past its original sunset clause, and which 4 had argued, loudly and on the record, that we should never have been seated at all. I knew the sound the chamber made when it was waiting, a particular held stillness, the ventilation cycling, the occasional scratch of a clerk's notation, the ancient hum of a building that had heard a great many apologies and was prepared to hear one more. I reached into my case. I placed a bound volume on the speaking table. It was not thick. It had the dimensions of a personal journal, perhaps 200 pages, cloth-covered, spine unmarked. I did not open it. I did not explain it. I set it flat on the table's surface and stepped back. And for a moment, the chamber simply looked at it the way a body looks at something it does not yet have a category for. Then I walked out. The chamber held its quiet for the time it takes a long room to understand what it has just witnessed. I was in the corridor before the first voice was raised, in the outer atrium before the second, through the transit bay doors before the arbiter's call for recess reached me through a meter of composite wall. They opened the volume at the recess. I was told, afterward, by a concordance clerk who had no particular reason to be kind to me, but was anyway, that Elder Sorath held the volume for a long time before he passed it, that the Vethrani arbiter on his right read the first page twice, that the session did not reconvene that day. What was in it was this. Every session of the Soleth Concordance over 19 years carries a word allocation, a formal record, entered into permanent archive, of how many speaking seconds each seated mission is granted and how many it uses. For a standard session, Earth's allocation ran to approximately 114 words. Some sessions were shorter, a few, for emergency proceedings, ran longer. The ledger did not lie. Across 2,847 sessions, Earth had been granted a total of 326,578 words of recognized floor time. We had spent none of them. The volume contained the ledger in full, every session logged by date, by allocated word count, by words actually spoken, by words carried forward. The carried forward column ran the length of the book. 326,578 words. Saved, logged, and formally transferred, under Procedural Statute 62, Paragraph 3, which permits any mission with an accrued speaking surplus to convert that surplus into a permanent filing credit with full precedential weight, indistinguishable in the Concordance's own system from a ruling of deliberative merit. We had not been negligent. We had been choosing. Every word not spent in that chamber was a word transferred, converted, made permanent. Not silence, capital. And the capital had been accumulating at compound rate for 19 years, filed quarterly under a provision so old and so rarely invoked that no sitting arbiter had ever needed to know its name. The Concordance's own archive system had accepted every transfer without complaint. The Concordance's own archive system had, in the quiet way of systems that do not ask why, given us credit. 326,000 words of precedential standing, against which the Concordance could now be petitioned. On any matter. Without appeal. I learned from the same clerk, the kind one, the one who had no reason to help me but did, that Elder Sorath said very little when the session finally reconvened, 2 days later, with all 31 seats occupied and me absent, that the Vethrani arbiter moved to table the censure proceeding pending a full review of Statute 62's applicability, that the motion passed without debate, that the room was, by the observer gallery's account, very quiet. I had been back at my desk for 4 hours by then, drafting a filing. Not a complaint, not a challenge, a simple petition, under the credit now formally recognized in the Concordance's own ledger, requesting that Earth's observer seat be upgraded to full deliberative standing, with retroactive effect to the date of the first accrued transfer, 19 years prior. 96 words. I wrote it in 96 words, because that was all it needed, and because I had learned, over a very long posting, that the rooms you sit in quietly for long enough will eventually tell you exactly how many words the thing requires. Not a syllable more, not a syllable less. The trick is knowing the difference between silence that empties you and silence that fills the account. I had been making that distinction since the first session I attended, when I was new enough to the Concordance to still feel the pull of the floor, the desire to say something, to be counted, to prove that we were here and awake and present. I had stayed in my seat and said nothing. I had opened the ledger instead, and kept it open, session after session, year after year, in a posting so quiet that 2 of my 3 government handlers had stopped checking in, and 1 had filed a report suggesting the position be dissolved for lack of utility. The position was not dissolved. The Concordance confirmed deliberative standing 14 days later. No session, no ceremony. A single administrative entry in the archive, time-stamped at the 3rd hour, carrying a notation from the presiding archivist that the application of Statute 62 had been reviewed and found compliant in all particulars. No one called. No one wrote. I filed an acknowledgement of receipt, 11 words, formal, exact, and went back to work. The Concordance has 39 seats now. Earth holds 1 of them, full deliberative weight, precedential credit intact, the longest unbroken observer-to-member transition in the body's recorded history. Elder Sorath retired the following year. His successor has never raised the question of Earth's speaking habits. She is, I suspect, wise enough to have read the ledger. The words I spent in 19 years of sessions, 0. The words I spent in the petition that changed it, 96. The words I am spending now, telling you this, I am not counting. I never counted the ones that didn't matter.